My ex-in-laws and parents cut me off immediately after seeing that my wife cheated on me with the better brother, who they all adored, and left me in the dirt. But things seem to have gone south, because they're all suddenly calling me nonstop, wanting to come see me, because brother is leaving for another woman, so it's my responsibility to come take his place again, because it's my duty as a man. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but recent events have pushed me to a breaking point, and I need perspective from this community. My ex-wife Julika and I were married for 8 years before everything fell apart. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and had what I thought was a solid, happy marriage. Julie was charming, dependable, and good-looking, the type of person people would look at and think, wow, he's lucky. We shared common goals, and she was always supportive of my career. Everything just felt right. I thought we had something solid, and never imagined how wrong I was growing up. I was always the responsible one in the family. My parents would praise me for being the dependable, mature son who would make a good husband one day. On the other hand, my younger brother Luke was the golden child. He was handsome, charismatic, and the life of the party. My parents adored him, and it felt like everyone who met him was instantly charmed by him. But I never really thought about it too much, because he was my brother and I loved him. Sure, my parents always seemed to focus on him, but I just brushed it off as typical family dynamics. I thought the whole perfect son thing was just the way they saw him. Looking back, maybe I should have seen the warning signs. Luke was around us often because our families were close, and he and Julie got along well, too well, as it turns out. I came home early one day from work because I wasn't feeling well. The house was quiet, and I noticed one of Luke's bags in the living room. At first I thought he must have just come over to visit, but as I walked down the hallway, I could hear them talking in our bedroom. My heart sank, but I told myself to calm down, not to jump to conclusions. But when I opened the door and saw them, it was like my entire world just crumbled around me. I'll never forget the shock on their faces when they saw me standing there. It felt like I was stuck in a nightmare. I barely remember the confrontation. I think I was too shocked to process it all in real time. I left the house that day with whatever I could grab and didn't look back. That should have been the worst of it, but somehow what happened afterward hurt even more. When I reached out to my parents hoping they'd support me through the worst moments of my life, I was met with absolutely zero reaction. Instead of comfort, they gave me some patronizing speech about how marriages are complicated, and how maybe I had pushed Julie away. They even suggested that Luke was doing her a favor by showing her real love. My own family acted like I was the one who had messed up, like I'd somehow driven Julie into my brother's arms. In the days that followed, things only got worse. Julie's parents, whom I'd grown close to over the years, took her side without question. They were completely charmed by Luke, treating him like the perfect addition to the family. I tried reaching out a few more times, but eventually, I got the message loud and clear. I was completely done. I was completely alone. Both families stood firmly behind Julie and Luke. I was disposable to them, easily replaced by someone they thought was better suited for the role of husband and son-in-law. The divorce process was quick and brutally cold. I couldn't bear to keep anything that reminded me of Julie or the life we'd shared, so I left most of it behind. I moved into a tiny apartment, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life with no support. I lost nearly everyone in my social circle because, thanks to my family's influence and connections, Julie and Luke managed to paint me as the bitter, unstable one, and Luke was the one who saved Julie from me, but somehow, I got through it. I threw myself into work and slowly started meeting new people who didn't know about the mess that had become my life. I found new friends, a couple of neighbors who were kind, and over time, I began to rebuild. I'd always thought I needed my family to feel whole, but I learned that I could be okay on my own. I found the kind of strength and independence I didn't know I had. And even though it was incredibly hard, I was proud of myself for getting through it. Just as I was starting to find peace, things took a wild turn. Out of nowhere, my phone started blowing up with calls and messages from my parents and from Julie's family. At first I ignored them, thinking it was some kind of sick joke, or maybe just someone checking in because they felt guilty. But the calls kept coming, so I finally listened to one of the voicemails. What I heard left me absolutely floored. Luke had left Julie. He'd apparently met someone else, another woman who had caught his eye, and walked out on Julie without so much as a goodbye. Now, with Julie left heartbroken, both of our families were scrambling to put the pieces back together. And who did they think should fill in the spot Luke had left? Me, of course. I was the rightful husband, they said. They actually thought I should go back to Julie and take my place, as if I was some kind of backup plan waiting in the wings. The messages were full of emotional manipulation disguised as concern. At first, they were begging me to come back and forgive them, but then their texts started sounding insane. They kept saying it was my duty as a man to give Julie a second chance, that forgiveness would show how strong I was. My dad even said it was a chance to prove my worth as a son. As if I hadn't already spent years bending over backward for this family that tossed me aside. Julie's family chimed in too, saying that she was lost without me and that I should come back to keep the family together. It was as if my own pain, my own betrayal, didn't matter. All they cared about was keeping up appearances, as though I should somehow just forget that they'd all abandoned me. I've been so angry because of this. After everything I'd gone through, losing my family, my wife, my social circle, these people thought they could just call me back as if I owed them something. As if I hadn't been discarded and replaced like an old piece of furniture. And the worst part was they acted like I should be grateful for the chance to come back. For a while, I debated whether I should confront them. Part of me wanted to scream at them to let them know how deeply they'd hurt me and how absurd their request was. But another part of me knew that they wouldn't understand. They never saw me as a person with feelings, just as someone who could fulfill a role they needed. Confronting them wouldn't change anything. They'd twist it around, somehow make it about them, or tell me I was being dramatic. So I'd been ignoring the calls, trying to find some peace in the life I'd built for myself. But they have been bothering me this whole time. Every few days I'll get another voicemail, another text message, and it drags me back to that place of anger and hurt. They don't see me as a person with my own life and pain, they only see me as a convenience, someone who can patch up their mess. It's been exhausting, and I'm so tired of feeling like I'm the only one who sees how messed up this all is. Honestly, I know I'm not wrong for refusing to go back, but part of me wonders if there's something I'm missing. Should I confront them and try to make them see the damage they've caused? Or should I just block them all and let them deal with the mess they made? I know I've come a long way, but this whole thing has brought up so many old wounds that I thought I'd healed. So Reddit, what am I supposed to do here? Should I even bother trying to explain to them how much they've hurt me, or would it just be a waste of time? Update: Hi guys, I wish I could say things have gotten better, but honestly, the situation has only gone from bad to worse. Ever since I posted, my inbox has been flooded with more messages and calls from my family and Julie's family, and it's been a nightmare trying to keep up with all of it. My phone buzzes with notifications all day, to the point that I'm starting to dread even looking at it. I've tried blocking numbers, but somehow they keep finding ways to reach me, whether it's through new numbers or emails. It's like they're determined to wear me down. But what really took me by surprise was a call from Julie herself. I usually don't pick up calls if I don't recognize the number, but this time I did. I thought it might be work-related, or maybe a friend. But the minute I heard her voice, my stomach dropped. It was Julie, and she immediately started in on what sounded like a pre-planned speech. She began by saying she was deeply sorry, and that she realized she'd made some terrible mistakes. I could hardly believe the audacity of it all. She talked as if she had just forgotten to pick up milk on her way home, not destroyed our marriage by sleeping with my own brother. She kept it used to matter so much, keeping up this fake sense of peace. I was so shaken by everything that I couldn't even bring myself to respond. I just ended the call and broke down. I wish I could just sever all ties, but it feels nearly impossible. Despite everything that's happened, there's still a part of me that longs for their approval, their acceptance. I know it's unhealthy, and I've seen enough to know who they really are, but it doesn't make the pain any easier. A small part of me is still that little boy who wanted nothing more than unconditional love from his parents, even though I know now that will never happen, and that truth is almost as painful as the betrayal itself, and here I am, feeling just as lost as before. I thought I was over this, that I had picked up the pieces of my life, that they always seem to pull me back in. Part of me wants to stand up to them, to tell them exactly what I think about their so-called family values. But another part wonders if it's even worth my time. They've shown me their true selves, and I know that no amount of talking will ever make them see me for who I am or respect the boundaries I've set. But it's hard to walk away when they keep dragging me in right now. I feel mentally and emotionally drained. It's as if they're trying to undo all the progress I've made, all the peace I fought so hard to find. I tell myself not to let them get to me, but it's tough. I feel like I'm somehow the one in the wrong, even though I know deep down that I'm not. It's been weeks since I tried to process everything, and honestly, nothing has calmed down. If anything, it feels like the drama's been cranked up, and I'm just trying to keep my balance. The calls, the messages, the constant bombardment from both my family and Julie's family got so overwhelming that I finally made the decision to cut them all off. I blocked their numbers, their emails, and their social media accounts. It wasn't easy, but I needed that boundary. For a few days, it felt like a small victory. My phone wasn't lighting up every few minutes with guilt trips. For the first time in months, I could just exist without their constant noise. But of course, that peace didn't last long. Nothing about this situation lets me breathe easily for long. A few days later, after blocking everyone, I came home from work, exhausted and ready to just collapse, only to find my dad standing outside my apartment like it was the most normal thing in the world. My stomach sank. I hadn't told him where I moved after the divorce, so the fact that he found me felt like a huge violation. For a moment, I thought about pretending I hadn't seen him and walking away, but I knew he wouldn't just leave me alone. He would keep showing up until I gave him attention. It was just so typical of him. Like a master class in emotional manipulation, he started telling me how everything was falling apart, how miserable Julie was, and how Luke's absence was a wound no one knew how to fix. He kept emphasizing that family was everything, as if that meant I had some responsibility to fix everything, just because we shared blood. He went on about how I needed to move on from the past, because that's what families do. He even brought up the upcoming holidays, suggesting that Christmas would be the perfect time to heal and come together. I couldn't believe the audacity. This was the same man who had done nothing when my wife and brother completely destroyed my life, and now he wanted me to patch things up. My mind was spinning. It was so frustrating and so exhausting I just stood there, trying to keep my emotions in check while he rambled on about forgiveness. By the time he left, I felt completely drained, like an empty shell. It was such a stark reminder of where I stood in my family's priorities. Definitely not at the top. And that wasn't even the worst part. Soon after that conversation, I received an email from Julie. I hadn't heard from her in a while, and when I saw her name in my inbox, it felt like a punch to the gut. Her message was brief, but full of intent. She claimed to understand why I was upset and hoped we could talk things over. To make matters worse, she attached a picture of us from our wedding day. That photo used to bring me joy, but now it just made me sick. I deleted the email immediately. There was no way I was going to let her back in, no matter how much she claimed to be sorry, and just when I thought I'd had enough, Luke reached out too. His email came completely out of nowhere, with the subject line, "I'm sorry." For a brief second, I wondered if he was finally going to take responsibility for his actions. But no. His so-called apology was just a string of excuses. He went on about how he never meant to hurt me, how his relationship with Julie just happened because they were in love, as if that somehow justified it. And if that wasn't bad enough, he even said he hoped Julie and I could get back together. He said he was rooting for us to find happiness again, like his approval even mattered anymore. I was so angry I could barely think straight. What could I even say to that? The answer was nothing. I deleted his email, just like I did with Julie's. There was no point in engaging with someone so clueless about the damage they'd caused. It felt like they were trying to rewrite the past, as if nothing had ever happened. But I wasn't going to let them gaslight me. These past few weeks have been some of the hardest I've faced. The betrayal, the pressure to forgive, the constant manipulation, it's all taken a toll on me. Therapy has helped, but some days the progress feels agonizingly slow. It's hard to see a way out when everything seems to pull me back into the darkness. But I'm still trying. If nothing else, this whole ordeal has taught me the importance of putting myself first, even when everything around me urges me to do the opposite. With the holidays approaching, I know it won't be easy. The whole family togetherness idea will be shoved in my face at every turn. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not going to let that dictate my choices. I've spent too much time trying to keep everyone else happy at the cost of my own well-being. It's time to take control and make decisions that are right for me, even if it means upsetting some people along the way. It's still not easy. There are days when the guilt creeps in. I think about all the messages I've ignored, all the people I've cut out, and wonder if I'm making the right choice. But then I remind myself of everything they've done, everything they've put me through, and I know this is what I need. I'm learning that I don't owe anyone my peace, my happiness, or my mental health. I'm learning it's okay to walk away from people who don't respect my boundaries, no matter who they are. The future is still uncertain, and I know challenges will continue to arise, especially with the holidays around the corner. But I'm determined to not let the past control my future.